The market was alive with noise, smells, and bright alien lights. Yet there was a corner where the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. It was a place where broken things were sold: machines, scrap, and sometimes living beings. In that corner stood a frail alien girl named Lyra. Her skin was pale, with a faint shimmer like starlight dulled by dust, and her thin body swayed as if even standing was a struggle. But what caught the eye of any passing observer wasn't just her fragile state, was the obvious absence of her left leg, replaced by a crude metal stump that barely supported her. Her species, once proud and graceful, were now scattered, enslaved, or dead. Lyra stood in that filthy market not to beg for food, nor to seek mercy, but to sell herself. She carried a small, dirty board hanging around her neck that said in universal script, "Selling myself for prosthetic leg." She didn't want wealth or luxury, she just wanted a leg to walk again. Yet no one paused, no one cared. They looked, they laughed, they mocked. Who would buy a broken girl? She was nothing but trash in their eyes. The auctioneer, a fat, slimy alien, smirked every time he shouted her offer, hoping someone would pay, if only for a cruel joke. Lyra stood still, face down, her stomach empty, her heart heavier. She wasn't sure if she would survive the night. She wasn't sure if she even wanted to. But then a shadow stepped out from the watching crowd. A tall human male, wearing a dusty jacket, tools strapped to his belt, and eyes that didn't carry mockery, but curiosity and something else, something warmer. His name was Evan. He was a mechanic by trade, a wanderer by heart, and a human tired of watching cruelty in every corner of the galaxy. When he saw Lyra, something inside him twisted, not in pity, but in anger at the world that treated life so cheaply. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the crowd. "How much for the girl?" The auctioneer chuckled. "You sure, human? She's defective. No refunds." The crowd roared in laughter, but Evan's face remained calm, his eyes fixed on Lyra's trembling form. "I'll pay whatever it takes," he said firmly. "But she leaves with me now." The transaction was made quickly, too quickly, like the seller couldn't wait to be rid of her. Evan approached Lyra, kneeling to her level. She flinched, expecting another insult, a strike maybe, but instead, his hand was gentle. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She whispered, barely audible, "Lyra." "Lyra, I'm Evan. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm going to help you, okay?" She stared, confused. No one had ever bought her to help her. Evan carried her easily, light as a feather, back to his ship docked nearby. Inside, the air was warm, the lights soft, the smell of metal and oil. Familiar to Evan, but strange to her. He placed her gently on a padded seat. She looked around, eyes wide, unsure if this was a dream or another trap. Evan offered her water and food, and she devoured them hungrily, too weak to even thank him properly. When she finished, she finally asked, her voice cracking, "Why did you buy me?" Evan leaned back, wiping grease from his hands. "Because no one deserves to stand in that market, hoping someone notices their pain. Because you deserve better. And because I can help." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever said she deserved anything. She wanted to believe him, but life had taught her that kindness always had a price. Still, for the first time in years, she felt a flicker of hope. Evan showed her his workshop, filled with tools, parts, and half-finished machines. He told her he could build her a leg, not just any leg, but one that would work better than the crude prosthetics on the market. She watched him work, the way his hands moved with care, the way his brow furrowed in focus. Days passed. Her body began to recover with food and rest, and her heart, though guarded, started to open. She told him stories of her people, of how slavers destroyed her village, how she ran, losing her leg in the escape, left alone ever since. Evan listened, never interrupting, never judging. He shared his own stories to how he'd left Earth. Disillusioned by wars and politics, choosing instead to fix broken things across the stars. Sometimes, he said, fixing a machine feels like fixing a part of myself. Lyra smiled faintly at that. She wanted to be fixed to not just her body, but her broken trust, her shattered dignity. The day finally came when Evan presented her with the prosthetic leg. It wasn't just functional, it was beautiful, crafted with sleek designs, flexible joints, and soft padding where metal met skin. He attached it carefully, explaining every piece. Then he held out his hand. "Try it," he encouraged. She stood, wobbled, then steadied herself. The sensation was strange but exhilarating. She took one step, then another, then more, until she was pacing the room with shaky laughter. She turned to Evan, eyes glistening. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't think I'd ever walk again." Evan smiled gently. "That's just the start, Lyra. You're more than your broken parts." She nodded, feeling for the first time that maybe he was right. But outside, in the cold darkness of space, others had taken notice. The slavers who once captured her had heard she was alive, and now they wanted their property back. Evan never thought that a simple stop on a rundown planet would change his life, but ever since he brought Lyra onto his ship, something inside him refused to remain the same. She was quiet, observant, always watching with wide eyes as if unsure. If this was all real, Evan had seen broken machines, fractured engines, and torn apart ships, but Lyra was different. She was a broken soul, wrapped in a thin, trembling body. Yet behind her shyness, there was a stubborn spark he couldn't ignore. He had seen it when she first stood on her new leg, trying to walk despite her fear of falling. For days, she barely spoke unless asked, keeping two corners of the ship like she was afraid she might be kicked out any second. But Evan didn't push. Instead, he showed her how the tools worked, explaining every little detail, talking about machines like they were old friends. Slowly, her curiosity outweighed her fear. She began asking small questions about the tools, about wires and circuits. One evening, as Evan worked on an engine core, she asked softly, "Why do you help me?" "You could have just left me there." Evan paused, setting down his tool. He looked at her seriously and replied, "Because someone had to. Because I'm tired of walking past people who need help and pretending I don't see it." Lyra's eyes lowered. She was not used to kindness without price. In her world, favors always came with chains. But there was no chain here. Only Evan's quiet patience. Over time, she started to assist in small tasks, handing tools, cleaning parts, and listening carefully. Evan noticed how quickly she learned. Despite her past, her mind was sharp, her hands delicate but precise. One day, while adjusting the calibration on the leg he made her, he asked, "Ever thought about fixing things instead of running from them?" Lyra blinked, unsure. She had never been given a choice before. Fix or run most times. She only knew how to run. But fixing, it sounded like a power she had never imagined she could have. Evan taught her step by step, and for the first time, Lyra began to feel like more than a broken girl. She was learning, building, creating. She was becoming someone new. But peace was a fragile thing in the galaxy. One quiet night, as the ship floated near an asteroid belt, a signal pinged on the console. Evan frowned. It wasn't a random signal, it was a tracking beacon. Somehow, someone had tagged them. Lyra's face paled when she saw the frequency. She recognized it belonged to the slavers who once captured her. Fear returned to her eyes, and her hands trembled. She backed away, whispering, "They found me. They're coming." Evan stood quickly. "They're not taking you. Not while I'm here. Lyra shook her head, panic rising. You don't understand. They'll kill you. They'll take me back. I'm their property to them. Evan grabbed her shoulders gently but firmly. You're not property. You're free. I'll make sure of that. He began preparing the ship, setting traps, powering shields, and loading his old blaster relic he hadn't used in years but kept polished just in case. Lyra watched him, guilt and fear mixing in her chest. She didn't want him hurt because of her. I should leave, she said quietly. If I run, they'll follow me and leave you. Evan turned sharply. No, I didn't save you just to lose you. We'll fight them, together. Those words stunned her. Together, no one had ever stood with her before. The hours ticked by, the tension building until their scanners finally picked up multiple ships closing in. The slavers had arrived. There. Leader, a brutal alien with scars across his face, sent a transmission. Return the girl, human. She belongs to us. Give her up, and we'll let you live. Evan's reply was simple. She belongs to no one. If you want her, come and take her. The slaver laughed, promising to tear the ship apart. Lyra stood beside Evan, determination growing in her heart. She wouldn't run anymore. She wouldn't. Be weak. She strapped on her new leg, adjusted it carefully, and readied herself. I'll fight, she said. You built this leg. Let me use it. Evan smiled proudly. That's my girl. The battle began with laser blasts shaking the hull, but Evan's traps caught several attackers off guard. He had wired parts of the ship with electric snares and magnetic pulses. Lyra, moving faster and stronger than she ever had, defended the engine room, ensuring no one sabotaged their escape. She fought with tools and her own hands, remembering every lesson Evan taught her. Despite the danger, despite the fear, she felt alive, powerful. Together, they pushed back the invaders until the last slaver ship retreated, wounded and humiliated. The ship was damaged, but still standing, and more importantly, they had won. Breathing hard, Lyra looked at Evan, her heart pounding. We did it? Evan nodded, tired but smiling. You did it, Lyra. I just helped. In that moment, Lyra realized she wasn't just fixed, she was free. And she wasn't alone. The battle was over, but the echoes of it still lingered in the ship's metal walls and in Lyra's heart. She sat quietly near the engine room, her breathing slow but uneven, the memory of the fight replaying in her mind. Her prosthetic leg, designed and built by Evan, had performed beyond her hopes. She had kicked, run, and stood her ground for the first time in years. But now that the danger was past, Lyra felt something heavier inside. Not fear, but uncertainty. She was free, yes. But what now? She wasn't used to having choices. All her life, she was either owned, hunted, or discarded. She looked at her hands stained with grease and dirt, and then at her new leg. She remembered Evan's words. You're more than your broken parts. But could she really believe that? In the corner of the room, Evan was repairing the minor damages their ship had taken. His face was focused, determined, but kind. He worked not just to fix metal, but to restore peace to her, to the ship, and perhaps to himself. Lyra approached. Slowly, unsure if she was welcome or needed. Evan glanced up and smiled gently. You held your own back there, he said. I'm proud of you. Lyra's cheeks warmed. No one had ever said that to her. She sat across from him, watching his hands work, remembering how those same hands had built her leg with care. Evan, she said softly, why do you keep helping me? You've already given me more than anyone ever has. I don't understand. Evan set his tool down, leaned back, and sighed. Because I know what it feels like to be broken. Not like you, maybe, but inside. I left Earth because I was tired of seeing good people crushed by others, stronger or richer. I couldn't fix the world back there, but I can fix things here. Machines, ships, maybe people too. Lyra looked down, her voice even softer. I'm not someone worth fixing. Evan frowned and reached across, taking her hand carefully. That's where you're wrong. You've survived things most beings wouldn't. You're still standing. That means something, Lyra? You just forgot it for a while. Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, but the scars on her body and mind whispered otherwise. I'm still scared, she admitted. Even with the leg, even after fighting. What if they come back? What if I'm never really whole? Evan squeezed her hand gently. Being whole doesn't mean being fearless. It means standing even. When you're scared, you did that today. Silence fell between them, comfortable this time. Lyra felt warmth spreading in her chest, a feeling she hadn't known for years. Connection, safety, maybe even ... belonging. She looked around the ship, the only home she had now. Teach me, she said suddenly. I want to learn what you know, how to fix things, how to make things. Evan's smile widened.
I'd be happy to.
Let's start tomorrow, but tonight you need rest. She nodded, but didn't move immediately. She just sat there, holding his hand a little longer, feeling less like a burden and more like a partner. In the days that followed, true to his word, Evan taught her everything. How to read the ship's systems, how to weld, how to patch circuits, how to think like an engineer. Lyra was a quick learner. Her mind was sharp, and her hands, though small, were steady and precise. She found joy in the clink of tools, the spark of energy when circuits connected right. Every day, she grew stronger, not just in body, but in heart. She laughed more, asked questions, challenged Evan's methods sometimes, and even suggested improvements. Evan saw in her not just a student, but an equal, someone who could one day surpass him. And for Lyra, every piece of machinery she fixed, every task she completed was a piece of herself being rebuilt. She was no longer just an alien girl with a missing leg. She was an engineer in the making. Sometimes at night, she would sit by the window of the ship, staring at the stars. She wondered where her people were, if any still survived, if she would ever see them again. But for the first time, that thought didn't fill her with dread. She had a place now, a person who believed in her. Maybe one day, she could help others like herself build legs, build futures. One evening, as she adjusted a faulty conduit, Evan stood beside her, watching her work. You've come a long way, Lyra, he said. She looked up at him, a genuine smile on her face. Thanks to you, Evan shook his head. You did the hard part. I just gave you tools. You did the fixing. She looked at the metal in her hand, then at her prosthetic leg, and then at herself. Maybe she wasn't fully fixed yet, but she was on her way. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid of the journey. She was ready for it. Days turned into weeks aboard Evan's ship, and with every sunrise, Lyra felt herself becoming someone new, someone stronger, steadier, someone who had more than just scars and broken memories. Every morning, Evan would hand her a tool, sometimes a wrench, sometimes a soldering iron. And with every tool came a lesson. First, she had fumbled, dropping things, her hands shaking from old habits of fear. But Evan never raised his voice, never showed impatience. Instead, he would kneel beside her, guide her fingers, and explain again. As if time was endless when it came to teaching her. Slowly, her hands stopped shaking. She learned to strip wires without slicing her fingers, learned to read the blinking patterns of diagnostics, learned to hear the hum of a machine and know if it was healthy or sick. But even as her body and skills improved, her mind was still tangled with doubt. Why did he care so much? Why didn't he ask for anything in return? She'd spent her whole life around people who took advantage, who smiled only when they could use her. Evan was different, but she couldn't understand why. One evening, after a long day fixing a faulty engine stabilizer, Lyra sat on the metal floor of the ship's workshop, staring at the prosthetic leg Evan had made for her. She unlatched it carefully, inspecting its joints, running her fingers along the smooth metal, feeling its warmth from her body's heat. She thought of asking Evan to teach her how to improve it stronger, faster, better, but the question stuck in her throat. Instead, she whispered to herself, "Why?" The word hung in the air. Evan, sitting nearby repairing a plasma coil, heard her. "Why what?" he asked, his voice soft but curious. She glanced at him, then away. "Why'd you make this for?" "Me. Why did you help me? I'm not useful. I was just ... broken." Evan set the coil down and leaned back against the wall, thinking for a moment. "Because I know what it feels like," he said finally. "To be discarded. On Earth, I was. Just another mechanic, another nobody. People didn't see me. I wasn't important. But fixing things gave me purpose. And when I saw you in that market, I saw someone who deserved a chance to feel that purpose too." Lyra's eyes glistened. She had expected some transactional reason, some debt she would owe. But this was different. "But I'm just one person. You could have walked away." Evan smiled faintly. "I could have, but I didn't want to. Maybe I'm fixing more than machines. Oh, maybe I'm fixing myself too, by helping you." The room fell into a quiet, comfortable peace. Lyra attached her leg back on, testing its weight, feeling pride that she could stand without pain now. She approached Evan's workbench and watched him carefully as he adjusted the plasma coil. "Can I help?" she asked. Evan looked up, eyes warm with approval. "Of course. Here, take this gauge and watch the readings while I adjust the output." As they worked side by side, Lyra realized that for the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving, she was contributing, building, creating. She was part of something. And bit by bit, her trust in Evan grew not because of grand gestures, but because of the small moments, the shared laughter when a component sparked. Unexpectedly, the patient guidance, the quiet dinners where they talked about stars, planets, and dreams. One night, while they were repairing the outer hull from the recent slaver attack, Evan asked her, "What do you want to do, Lyra? Not just today, but in the future?" The question caught her off guard. She had never thought that far ahead. The future was always a blur of fear and hunger. She sat on the edge of the hull, looking out at the stars. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I want to help others, like you helped me. Maybe there are others like Neil, lost, broken. Maybe I can fix them too." Evan nodded, a proud smile on his face. "That's a good goal, and you will. You're a fast learner." She smiled back, feeling that spark of confidence he had planted in her beginning to grow roots. Trust wasn't something she gave easily, but Evan had earned it, not by demanding it, but by proving it, one day at a time. She knew now that he wasn't like the others. He didn't see her as property or a burden. He saw her as a person, a partner, and maybe even a friend. For Lyra, that was everything. She was no longer just a broken girl with a missing leg. She was Lyra, mechanic, fighter, survivor, and student. And with Evan by her side, she was ready to face whatever the stars threw their way. The day Evan completed the final upgrades on Lyra's prosthetic leg, the entire ship seemed to carry a quieter, hopeful energy. The leg wasn't just a replacement anymore, it was a masterpiece. The new design had reinforced alloy joints, flexible wiring that responded to Lyra's muscle movements with precision, and shock absorption that made running, jumping, even climbing feel natural. Evan had spent hours perfecting it, adjusting each section until it wasn't just functional, it was part of her. Lyra stared at it, sitting on Evan's workbench, gleaming under the workshop lights. She reached out, her hand hovering over the seal. Cool metal, a strange knot of excitement and fear swirling in her stomach. Evan watched her with a proud but gentle smile. "Go on," he said. "Try it. Let me know if anything feels off." Carefully, Lyra attached the new prosthetic, adjusting the straps and checking the fit. When she stood, the difference was instant. Her balance was smoother. The pressure points were perfectly aligned. And for the first time, it felt like she had her real leg back. She took one step, then another, faster and stronger. Without thinking, she broke into a run, dashing across the ship's corridors, her laughter echoing off the walls. She was running, truly running, for the first time since she was captured and maimed. She looped back, breathing hard but grinning wide, her eyes sparkling. "It's amazing, Evan. I don't feel ... broken anymore." Evan chuckled, wiping his hands with a rag. "You were never broken, Lyra. The leg just had to catch up to the rest of you." Those words hit deep, warming her chest like a light had been switched on inside. She sat down beside him, flexing her new leg, admiring the craftsmanship. "Thank you," she said, voice full of sincerity. "I don't even know how to repay you." Evan shook his head. "You don't have to repay me. Seeing you run like that is enough. But ... He paused, smiling slyly. "You could help me. Repair the hydropumps? They've been acting up again." She laughed, nodding eagerly. "Deal." For the next few days, Lyra trained herself with the new leg, pushing its limits, learning how to move with speed, grace, and control. Evan gave her tips, sometimes challenging her to races across the cargo bay, which he always lost, though he insisted he was letting her win. Their laughter filled the ship more often now, the heavy air of survival replaced by something lighter joy. But the galaxy was never peaceful for long. One evening, while Lyra was calibrating a power conduit, an alert flashed on the main console. Evan checked it, and his expression darkened. "What is it?" Lyra asked, walking over. "It's a bounty," Evan muttered. "Someone posted a price on you, Lyra. A high one." Her stomach twisted. "The slavers." Evan nodded grimly. "They must have tracked us after the last fight. They want you back. Badly." Fear stirred in Lyra's chest, but this time it was different. Not paralyzing like before, but burning. She looked down at her leg, then back at Evan. "I'm not going back," she said firmly. "I won't let them take me." Evan nodded approvingly. "That's the spirit. But we need to be smart. They'll send hunters, mercenaries, trackers. They won't stop." "Then we fight," she said. "You taught me how to build. Now teach me how to defend it." That night, they prepared. Evan showed her how to handle a blaster, how to set traps using the ship's systems, how to read enemy patterns. Lyra learned fast, her mind absorbing every tactic like a sponge. She wasn't just preparing to survive, she was preparing to win. She upgraded her leg herself, adding hidden compartments for tools, even a shock emitter for close combat. She wasn't going to be helpless again. Days later, the attack came. A squad of mercenaries boarded the ship, their leader, a towering brute with cybernetic arms and a cruel grin. "Where's the girl?" he sneered. "Hand her over, human, and maybe we'll leave you alive." Evan stood in front of Lyra, blaster in hand. "You'll have to get through both of us." The mercenaries attacked, but this time, Lyra was ready. She moved with speed and precision, her new leg giving her the agility to outmaneuver them. She shocked one merc with her leg's emitter, disabling him instantly. Evan covered her, blasting two others. They fought side by side, machine and muscle working as one. In the end, the attackers lay defeated, groaning or unconscious. Lyra stood over them, breathing hard but unbroken. She turned to Evan, a fierce grin on her face. "Told you I was ready. Evan laughed, clapping her on the shoulder. I never doubted it. That night, as they patched the ship and treated minor wounds, Lyra looked at the stars through the viewport. She felt different, now strong, capable, whole. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. And she was ready for whatever came next. The peace that followed their last battle was brief, like a calm before the storm that Lyra could sense but couldn't fully explain. The ship felt quieter, heavier, as if the walls themselves were bracing for impact. Evan worked tirelessly on, reinforcing the defenses, installing heavier shield generators, setting up remote-triggered traps, and calibrating the weapon systems that hadn't been used in years. Lyra assisted him, her movements sharp and precise, her mind focused, but her heart restless. She knew the bounty on her head was still out there, and with each passing day, the likelihood of stronger, more ruthless hunters arriving increased. Still, she wasn't afraid like she used to be. She had Evan, she had her new leg, and most importantly, she had herself rebuilt, reborn, determined. Then, one shadowy morning when the ship drifted near a gas giant, the radar alarms screamed. Multiple vessels were inbound fast, well-armed, professional. Evan scanned the monitors and his jaw tightened. They're hunters, all right. Not just thugs this time. These guys are serious. Lyra joined him, her eyes narrowing as she read the data. Can we outrun them? Evan shook his head. They've got us surrounded. If we try to jump, they'll disable the engines before we can get away. She swallowed hard, the old fear trying to surface, but she pushed it down. Then we fight. Evan looked at her, pride flickering in his gaze. We fight. He handed her a compact blaster and checked his own stick. To the plan, if they board, we split their attention. I'll lure them to the cargo bay. You protect the engine room. If we lose power, we're dead in space. Lyra nodded, already mentally mapping her path. She had prepared for this, trained for this. Her leg was fully charged, the hidden shock emitter ready. And she had reinforced the joints herself to handle the strain of combat. As the hunter ships docked, the hull vibrated with the weight of their presence. A grim voice echoed through the comms, deep and menacing. Hand over the girl, human. Do so, and we'll let you keep your miserable life. Evan switched the comes on and replied coolly, come and get her. The first breach shook the ship, metal grinding against metal. Hunters poured in sleek, armored, efficient killers. Evan engaged them in the corridors, using traps, misdirection, and sheer cunning. Lyra heard the blasts, the grunts, the chaos, but she didn't waver. She secured the engine room, setting up electric snares, placing barricades. When the first hunter burst in, towering with glowing red eyes, she was ready. He charged her, confident and cruel, but Lyra sidestepped with ease, her new leg giving her a burst of speed. She slammed her foot into his side, the shock emitter activating a pulse of energy coursing through him, dropping him instantly. She grabbed his dropped weapon and aimed as more followed. Blaster fire filled the room, but Lyra moved like she had been born for this, dodging, firing, using the machinery as cover. Every shot she landed was precise, every move calculated. She wasn't the scared girl from the market anymore, she was a fighter, and she was angry. These people had tried to chain her life again, and she would never let that happen. Meanwhile, Evan fought his own battle, leading groups of hunters into dead ends rigged with explosives, collapsing corridors, turning the ship itself into a weapon. But even with their efforts, the hunters were relentless, well-coordinated. One managed to breach further into the ship, slipping past defenses, heading straight for the engine room. Lyra saw him, larger than the others, moving with deadly precision. He was the leader. She realized, the one who would either take her or kill her trying. You can't win, girl, he growled. Come quietly, and I'll make your death painless. Lyra stood her ground, gripping her weapon. "You'll have to kill me first." He charged, and they collided like titans. Lyra dodged his blows, striking back with her enhanced leg, landing shocks that made him stumble but not fall. He was too strong, too fast. But she was clever. She lured him near the reactor core, where she had placed an emergency discharge module. With a swift kick to the console, she activated it. A blinding surge of energy shot out, engulfing the hunter leader. He screamed, his body convulsing, until he collapsed in a smoking heap. Lyra stood over him, panting, her heart racing but steady. She had won. She had fought, and she had won. Evan arrived minutes later, bruised but alive, his eyes scanning the aftermath. When he saw Lyra standing tall, victorious, his tired face broke into a proud grin. "Told you you'd be ready." Lyra smiled back, exhausted but glowing. "Thanks." To you, together, they cleared the remaining threats, sealing the ship again. The battle was over. The hunters defeated. But more than that, Lyra had proven to herself that she wasn't weak, wasn't prey. She was a survivor, a warrior. And with Evan by her side, there was nothing the galaxy could throw at her that she couldn't face.